Good morning. It's great to see all of you. Thank you for coming out today. This semester is well underway, and I recognize that everyone is very busy, so I wanted to take a moment certainly to thank you for coming and for your continued engagement. I also realize that we've had one of these forums just a few weeks ago, so having you out again for an encore and hearing the latest that we've been able to accomplish over the past several weeks, it's really delightful to have all of you here. So again, we last met on August 22nd. That was about 35 days ago. And at that time, we asked for your feedback on our pathways. We asked you about what was resonating with you about the plan so far and what didn't resonate. We also asked about what makes you most excited about this plan so far and where we can go. We asked you about the things that we should consider doing, as well as the things that we should stop doing. And in the process and all of the feedback that we collected, we heard you and we began to integrate that into the planning process. We also heard from others on our campus community and in our campus community, from our alumni, various board of trustee members, multiple other groups who invited us to provide updates. And today, what I'd like to do, and also with Lisa, is to provide you with the latest update on what we've developed so far. So by now, you are likely familiar with this, but I wanted to put it back up quickly, and this is our North Star statement, and let me go through that one more time. Case Western Reserve is a high-impact research university that aspires to be a community where humanity, science, and technology meet to create a just and thriving world. Our community and our thinkers, I think, did a wonderful job in generating this statement. And as is evident from some of the feedback that I've been receiving, I've heard people say things like, thank you for reaffirming our mission as a research university. I've also heard people say that we've been putting forward the fact that we want to be a stronger community, both on and off campus. This makes me want to be here. Some have even said, even though I don't like the word choice of humanity, science, and technology, I do understand that we have strength in these areas and that we can become even stronger by bringing even more disciplines into the conversation. We are also practitioners of something that we've been calling Agora academics. Now, this metaphor also is starting to mean something to our campus. I've started to hear it being used in various corners to describe the way that we want to be, to describe the values that we want to embrace as we define our future. Those values include respectful conversation and debate, having meaningful conversations, thinking hard about what we need to embody to be successful in the future, not just at Case Western Reserve, but throughout our society. As I've also mentioned before, the Agora of ancient Greece was a birthplace of democracy. But today, with so many changes that are occurring in our world in terms of technology, in terms of our politics, our social structures, our economic relationships, our environment, I don't think it's an overstatement to note that we exist in a world awash with opportunities to restore and reconcile ourselves and to realize the state of our future. We stand at the veritable birthplace of our collective renewal. And as a top-tier university, we have a unique opportunity and vantage point to process what's happening, to create the future, and to train generations of citizen leaders to build what is to come. Agora academics helps us get there, to debate it, to figure it out. It compels us to look at the tools of our trade. How do we partake in online learning? How do we better use technology in the classroom? What kind of leadership do we need to help model for our students to exhibit in the future? Exactly what does it mean to prepare this generation to be thinkers, to understand our history, to embrace technology fully without diminishing the totality of the human experience? And how do we take these issues on in our Agora, our forum for learning and engaging, while bringing in moral and ethical reasoning, a rich and complex understanding of culture, an understanding of social and economic systems, of human behavior, of development, with a global mindset? How do we collectively educate ourselves to thrive in a future state that will impel us to reconcile in new ways the impact of emerging and advancing technologies? And it's not just a recentering of our values and ways of learning that I see emerging from this metaphor that we've been talking about on our campus. I'm also seeing our campus beginning to develop additional ideas that align with the 4 pathways. Let me quickly remind you of those pathways and how we've started to simplify some of the ways we're at least communicating them. Pathway 1, ignite interdisciplinarity. Pathway 2, integrate humanity and technology. Pathway 3, achieve social impact. Pathway 4, the shape of the Agora. What are some of the examples that are emerging? One example of the ideas that are starting now to nucleate around these pathways, one comes from the College of Arts and Sciences, who is now planning to pilot a number of initiatives, from silo-busting Agora courses, which aligns to Pathway 1, to exploring data science across the college, which aligns to Pathway 2. Meanwhile, the Case School of Engineering has challenged faculty to think about future hires that are in line with the pathways, particularly in Pathway 2. At the Health Education campus, I see Agora academics in action in the pavilion as students and faculty work together across boundaries, fueling interdisciplinary work while solving community health problems. I know that the Weatherhead School has started a school-wide strategic planning conversation that seeks to align with the pathways. And a final example comes from the Office of Local Government and Community Relations, who is hosting an October 5th campus and community play date, emphasizing the nature of our relationships with our surrounding community. I hope that some of you can attend this. You'll find a flyer on your table. Before I come back with some additional remarks, I would like to turn the program over to Lisa so that she can begin to walk you through the changes that we've been making to the pathway metrics. And as we've been doing in many of our gatherings, we're also taking this opportunity to gain additional and critical feedback from you. So I'd like to ask you once again to be ready to engage and to participate in this process with an exercise. Lisa?
Thank you, Ben, and good morning, everyone. So what we heard 35 days ago from the campus, and then actually each day since that time, because we have been getting a lot of feedback from various campus constituencies, is that we needed to simplify what we had put forth on the 4 pathways with the metrics and the objectives. So we've been working to simplify that. You've also asked provided a lot of feedback about how's this really going to work? How are these pathways going to work? And that led to how's the process when it's time for us to fully engage. So I'm going to go over the first 2 things. Ben will come back up and talk about where we are in terms of how to engage with the process and a timeline perspective. I also will say that many of you provided great, nuanced feedback and language feedback in terms of how do we say things appropriately. So some of the language that you'll see in what we're going to work through came from you. So we thank you for that. So on your table, there are packets of 4 handouts. If I could ask you to grab one of those packets, and we're going to start working through them. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about each one, and then I'm going to give you about 4 to 5 minutes or less, we'll see how fast you all work, to then put some feedback on those documents. And you have sticky notes on the table. So you can either put that feedback on the sticky notes that we'll collect, or if you'd prefer to write directly on the document and give that document back to us, that's fine as well. So let's start with Pathway 1. So if you could flip to Pathway 1, which is Ignite Interdisciplinarity. So what you'll see that looks different from a month ago is that we really refocused this. And let me remind you who we is, the we. So it includes a weekly meeting that has the deans, it has the vice presidents that report up to Ben, it has the chair and co-chair of the Faculty Senate, it has 2 representatives from the Staff Advisory Committee, the president of Undergraduate Student Council, and the president of the Graduate Student Council. And I may have said those things wrong. The graduate students and the undergraduate students. So they have all been giving feedback on a weekly basis, either in person or just emailing things to us, because we gave them assignments each week. So just so you know, that's the group that's been taking your feedback and trying to integrate this. So how we set this up, if you look at Pathway 1, is that we took the objectives. I think originally we had 3 or 4, and we really targeted them down to focus first on research, second on education, and third on really the spaces and the infrastructure. And then what we did is we tried to have folks understand what is the desired outcome. To your point of how will these pathways really look? So what do we want to achieve if we can get this objective moving forward? And then we started to put together some measures. Now, I will say that we are a campus that loves metrics and measures, and we have almost 150 sitting in the background. And so we really have to kind of parse out which ones are the most important. And that's what you'll see on these draft measures here on the documents. Now, the other thing is that some of these are going to be hard to measure because our systems aren't quite set up to do this easily, and that's the other thing we're very cognizant of. So we're working through that as well. So right now, I'd like you to take a few minutes and look through Pathway 1, and please give us some very detailed feedback on your reactions to this and things that come to mind as you read through these. All right, let's move on to Pathway 2. All right, so Pathway 2, again, we brought this down to just 3 objectives. The first focusing on the research portfolio. The second focused on student learning. And then the third focused on the systems in support of this. All right, let's move on to the third pathway. And I'd like to say a few more things about this pathway. So this is the social impact, this is the outward-facing pathway that we've been working on. And we moved it down to 4 objectives, which was actually quite hard to do. I think we may have had 5 or 6 at one point. And one reason why this has been so meaningful in this one is because this seems to be what has really resonated for many, many different groups across the campuses, and in many different ways. And that's why it was a little hard to narrow it down in terms of the objectives. But I want to go through the 4 very specifically. So the first one is really focusing on the meaningful partnerships that we have with the for-profit and nonprofit sector, including NGOs, local and global. And the issue with this is really thinking about how do we get deeper partnerships. We have lots of partnerships on this campus. We have a ton of them, but they're not always integrated, coordinated, and not as deep as we think we can go. So really thinking about the deep experiences across external partners. The second one is really focusing on our local environment. So at one point in the process, we talked about thriving in Northeast Ohio. And we had a very robust discussion that has happened both on our weekly meetings, but also outside of those meetings about let's be a little bit more targeted and let's talk about Cleveland and East Cleveland specifically. And so that is a very deliberate focus on our surrounding neighborhood and what we need to be doing for our surrounding neighborhood to help them thrive. And then them being part of our campus. The other part of this is that two-way street. It's not us doing something, it's working together as a community and collectively. The third piece is really focused on a loud voice that we heard from the students in terms of that experiential learning and really translating knowledge into society. And so that's focused very deeply on that student experience both in and out of the classroom and applying what they're learning. And then finally, this focus on adopting a culture where entrepreneurism thrives on campus in all ways, both for-profit and nonprofits, the way of thinking, but also this concept of translating innovations out of the labs, right? So we kind of combine those two. They are two different things, but we did combine those. All right, your feedback on that will be appreciated. Thank you. All right, the fourth pathway. So shape the agora. I'm going to say we're going to call it both agora and agora to be very inclusive of that language. So we have 3 objectives that we've narrowed this down to. This is about us on this campus. So one thing that happened during this process last semester is that we heard loud and clear from faculty, from staff, and from students, not enough students. I will say we talked a lot to faculty, we talked a lot to staff, we talked to students, but probably not enough. We wish there was more. But what we heard from all groups was that we need to do a lot of things on this campus to pull us together as one university and to really work on that. And the first one, the objective, is talking about being a model of a demonstratively inclusive and welcoming campus culture for all. This is about how we look, what we look like, what we bring to the table, the respect, how we talk with one another. And so that's very important. That goes back to the faculty climate surveys, the staff climate survey that we don't have, that we know we have to pull together and do that. It's about the student surveys that are done through NESE, and there's a number of CWRU surveys. So we are paying attention to this, and we need to let you know that that is high on our mind. The second objective is about strengthening our policies, practices, and to ensure the accountability of our systems and how they work. You all gave us great ideas about how we need to make this campus work better. And we're serious about this, and we are serious about really figuring out what that needs to look like and what changes need to happen. And then finally, one thing that we heard a lot is that one thing that's unique about this campus is that we're all a bunch of overachievers, which is a great thing. Our students, our staff, our faculty, we all like to be great. And there's a hunger to figure out what it means to lead in this greatness, right? And there are leaders at all parts and levels of the institution. And I will say that the provost has been very strong in pushing this, is that leaders aren't just sitting in chairs or in dean's offices or in Adelbert. Leaders are throughout the institution. And we have to recognize that, and we have to support that. So that's why this became a very top objective for the team. All right, feedback, please. All right, so when we're finished, please leave your documents on your table, and we'll collect them, and we'll take back that feedback and really try to infuse it into our final product. Every step of the way, the campus has taken us in a very strong direction. I mean, it's amazing when we look back at what happened starting December 21st, 2018, when we unrolled this, and what has happened in that time. And so I think we've gone on a journey that you've all led us on. Now, I will say there are only 29 of you here today and only 20 online, so we're going to repeat this because we think it's way too valuable not to get more feedback. So in the next couple weeks, you're going to see this again. If you've been here, you're excused. You don't have to come back. But we want to make sure we get we want more language here. And so I will also say that you may not get the provost, but if there are groups that want this and can't hit a certain time, let me know, and I'll come and we'll walk through these documents because, we want to make sure that people see this, right, and understand what's in this, because this is where you all have taken us. So we will do this again. Now with that, I'd like to have the provost come back up and talk about next steps and where we go from here.
Lisa, thank you. And definitely, I do believe we do need an encore performance for this just to make sure we maximize our participation. I was talking with Arnold, who is part of the weekly Thursday group now, and we've been seeing this in pieces. So this is actually the first time I've actually seen it all in its 4 pages. And I was also reminding Lisa, we challenged each other to have a plan that's no more than 4 to 5 pages. And if we can roll with this, then I think we've gotten there. But over the past few weeks, let me just say that I've also been asked that what will our campus look like if we are successful on these 4 pathways? So as I begin now to close the session, I want to share a bit of what I imagine we will look like. So at the end of this, I hope that our university will be a place that has a secure and cemented spot in the AAU, with a continually evolving and expanding research portfolio that has made its mark impressionably on the human tech space in all of its disciplinary formations. That's from the humanities to the social sciences, law, social work, engineering, medicine, and more. I hope that we will have leapfrogged others and that we will have contributed greatly to the theory of the interface between human and technology, as well as to applications and learning. I know we're not alone in this space, but I think we have something special to offer. I hope that we will be a place where others come to see how we support, how we model interdisciplinary research and education, standing on the bedrock and the foundation of strong disciplines. I hope that we will have overcome our silos, that we will have sustainability and substantially improved our culture, and importantly, that we will be well on our way to figuring out the next phase of the evolution of interdisciplinarity itself. Now, I don't know exactly what that is and what that exactly looks like, but I do know that if Agora Academics is a guide, this will mean finding ways to increase not just how we unite researchers from different disciplines, but how we bring others in, how we bring community members, students, and staff in to help us solve problems, to help us apply our knowledge, and to help us communicate what we find to new and expanded audiences. I hope that we will be pioneers in applying the full breadth of our human capital to our mission of education and research, and to the formulation of research questions themselves. We will have better learned how to do interdisciplinary work better. We will have paved the way to make interdisciplinary work easier. We will have expanded who participates in interdisciplinary work. And we will have discovered how to disseminate our findings to new audiences with a trademark that is distinctively a Case Western Reserve way. At the end of this journey, I hope that we will be a place that is welcomed by our neighbors, but welcomed by our society, as an impactful university that has found its way to uplift systems, institutions, and individuals. I hope that we will play a role in restoring some of the public trust in higher education for our collective humanity. Finally, I want us to be a place that works through problems together, that communicates with ourselves, to be a place that is a little bit more swashbuckling, a little bit more free-form in its boldness to innovate, to create, to be a little bit less risk-averse. A place that embodies kindness that is inherent in the Midwestern values that surround us. A place that is welcoming to all and that retains its talent. Now, if we get this done right, we will unleash our faculty to be their best selves. We will return our students to that curious moment of wonder that will ignite their creativity as they stand at the gate of unlocking their careers. And we will empower our staff with the strength of our mission, emboldening them to drive us to a better institutional stance. Now, if any of this is something that you'd like to see too, you might be asking, how can I get in on this action? How does my unit, how does my department, how does my school participate? So we're finally starting to move in that direction now with the strategic planning process. And as we move into our implementation phase, we will be announcing a string of engagement opportunities. Now, this is going to include something that we're calling the Provost's RFPs, Next Generation Seeds, which is essentially a repetition of the seed sprints, but with some new features and goals. And we will be asking the schools and the units of the university to submit dean or unit alignment plans. And we will also begin issuing something that we're calling Agora or Agora Awards. So let me explain some of these in a bit more detail. First, the Provost RFPs. Now, at the moment, I am planning to release 2 to 3 topical RFPs for the campus to respond to, at least for this year. Now, these RFPs will be aligned to specific objectives on our pathways. Now, please note that this is not going to mean that all objectives are priorities for this year. Rather, each year we will have a new set of RFP priorities for investment that are going to be drawing upon the larger set of objectives along the pathways. There's going to be a rigorous review process for these RFPs, and you're going to be getting feedback from your submissions along the way. The feedback will range from, this proposal is funded, or this proposal is not funded, to this proposal needs to align better with one of the pathways, or the proposal's timing is not quite right. Please do X or Y or Z to strengthen the proposal. Or this project actually doesn't need funding, but instead it needs other forms of support or administrative or policy changes at this institution, something like that. These are some of the feedback that we envision. Now, please take note of this last one, because I also will be asking in these RFPs not just for proposals that need money, but also proposals that entertain process changes. We are interested in understanding how your projects also will be sustained over the long term, so that they simply just don't layer on top of the existing structures of the university, atop our existing infrastructure. We've realized over the course of rolling out the strategic plan that many institutions have engaged in something that are called grand challenges that are designed to solve major social problems. And a lot of the schools that have undertaken these grand challenges have found themselves taking on large, new, unexpected budget lines that have burdened their universities, and they haven't actually solved the challenge. So some of the structures that we've been able to see in this process have actually become defunct over time, and they just haven't been very successful. Others have been successful. But we want to avoid the fate of the many that have not succeeded. And we've had a chance to learn from our peers throughout this process. As appropriate, as part of the RFP process, we are also going to be asking what we may need to stop doing in order to implement a particular proposal. So the RFPs essentially are going to be asking our community to make some important decisions and choices that will ultimately help us achieve our long-term goals, mindful that we cannot take on everything. The next-gen seeds. We've also learned from the Seed Sprint process last semester, and in fact, many of the Seed Sprint proposals, including those that were not funded, have actually greatly informed our pathways and the RFP topics that we will be debuting a little bit later in the semester. So for those of you who are ready to align with the RFPs when they're announced, feel free, go ahead and do so. You can do that not necessarily without having to go through the next-gen seeds. But some of you may have unknowingly prepped your alignment through participating in the Seed Sprint process from last semester, so that will help align you to the RFPs moving forward. But we also realized that a lot of you stood out last round. Maybe you wanted to do a Seed Sprint, but you weren't ready. So this second round of seeds is designed for you. They're going to have a few guardrails on them that we didn't have as we introduced the initial Seed Sprints last year. Whereas last year's Seed Sprints were wide open in terms of the topics, these new seeds are going to feature special topical areas that we want you to connect with. And these topical areas are going to be defined by the objectives that we want to reach along our 4 pathways. We're probably going to pick 2 to 3 topics for you to submit proposals on. We will be expecting a fairly quick turnaround on your ideas, much like the Seed Sprints. But what we won't be doing is we won't be having quite as quick a turnaround in the deliberation and review process because we're going to be doing a much deeper vetting and possibly encouraging additional collaboration among the ideas that we've been receiving. One of the things we noticed, again, from our Seed Sprints last semester is a lot of cross-secting ideas. We could pull people together and actually make proposals stronger. Dean, VP, Director alignment plans. As the RFPs and the seeds are unveiled, at the same time, we're going to be asking the schools and units of this university to submit plan alignments. Now, essentially, this is an invitation for our community to digest, reflect upon, and then chart an individual course of connection that will link the activities that are happening at the unit level with our university-wide strategic plan. We anticipate that these plan alignments will be multi-year endeavors, extending probably for at least 3 years or so. Some of these plan alignment efforts are already underway. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the Weatherhead School is actively involved right now in its own strategic planning process, precisely with this in mind. The School of Engineering is involved in something that is similar, so these types of processes are already getting going. Through the plan alignment process, a unit's resources may align with the Think Big strategic plan, or a specific proposal may emerge whereby deans or other unit heads may request a financial investment, a process investment, a prioritization for our development office, or a plea for collaborative decision-making engagement between the provost and the dean, or a group of deans, or some other unit leader. There are a lot of manifestations that are possible. The plan alignments will necessarily assume various forms and outcomes. Finally, the Agora Awards. To facilitate the improvement of our culture, we're going to be launching an annual competition for teams drawn from across schools, divisions, or silos to develop solutions to some identified problem that can help propel our campus forward. Now, these problems and solutions will be presented to our campus community in the spring, and awards will be given to our winners after deliberation by the President's Council. Whoops. Now, as for timing, we expect the final metrics to be completed by the end of October, and our plan should be done by then. We're then going to turn our attention to moving forward this year's plan initiatives and an early implementation phase that's going to include all of the different things that you've just heard. But finally, to keep the momentum going, we'll soon be announcing and introducing monthly Agora Leadership Roundtable meetings so that we can continue to collectively learn and talk about higher education trends and external influences. We want to study these with you, not just to familiarize ourselves with key issues, but we want to understand what all of these trends mean for us at Case Western Reserve and for you individually. We hope that these meetings are going to better empower us in whatever roles that you occupy on campus. We want you to be leaders, to find ways for you to have a greater impact. These roundtables are going to start on October 30th, and you will be able to find a complete schedule on our website at case.edu/thinkbig. Now, joining us for these roundtables will be Academic Impressions, which is a leading think tank and higher education institution development institution, and its president, Amit Mrig, is actually in the room today in the back, and thank you for joining us on this journey in these Agora Leadership Roundtables. So guys, that's it for today. Remember that this process is about us coming to the table to work together on building our campus for the future. And now, in the remaining time, I would like to take any questions that you might have. Cynthia.
Is there one overarching thing that we want? I'm thinking a la Richard Boyatzis. And you have to have one, the metrics and the plans and everything, he would argue, are necessary, but they come secondary to where is it you want to be? What is it?
Yeah.
The big goal.
Simple, one word, and we've been using it many times, impact. Impact. And that's throughout the variety of spheres that we have. That's in each one of these pathways, you see it. You see it in impacting our community, and impacting our research, and impacting our development, impacting our ability to be a community together, our impact with our surrounding community. I think in many ways we have been good at kind of situated or local impact at the individual researcher level, at the individual sometimes unit level, but we have not rolled it up to have a collective impact institutionally. Some of that is a bit of our history, some of our fragmented coming together. But I think that for the next phase in our development, we can be more, we can have more impact, and by doing that and tethering ourselves together and working ourselves as a community, we can actually achieve that next register. So that's the one word I would use, and it can be seen in every single pathway, in almost every single objective that we're trying to reach. Yeah. Any others? Yes.
You mentioned that the next gen seeds, similar to the seed sprints, but different in that as they come in and they collaborate and try to will you do that with the existing seed sprints that were not, push forward last time? Or does everybody ever start
I like that question, and I'm going to invite Lisa up as well in a minute, but I will say that we've already started to have some conversations with people who were not funded, and we've already started the process of trying to connect folks and provide that necessary feedback. But those who have already submitted seed sprints and either have been funded or not been funded, and I've told Lisa too this, and she knows this, what an incredible repository of information, of individuals, of an outpouring, rather, of our community. I do not want to let that go. I think there was too much good that came out of that. So I have my eye on not just the seed sprint proposals, but the seed sprinters and what and how they came together. So that is deep on my mind, because that moment in time, I don't want to lose what happened there. So. Lisa, you want to come up and talk more about the mechanics?
Yeah, so we are still working through the mechanics and how that's going to happen, but we don't, to Ben's point, we don't want to lose that, so we're going to have to figure out how to take what was there and help move that forward. Now, I do think that because we're going to put topics on the sprints, that there will be some that it's not going to be this year for that group to move forward, right? So we have to align it, we do have to target it a little bit, because 139 was a lot of applications, and right, there's only so many hours in the day. So I think that we will try to make those connections when those topics get selected to find out what's been there that can go into it and others that can wait. And Ben is right. I've had a lot of people meet with me and with Ben where some of them went forward regardless, and that's like incredible. That's why this campus is so awesome. So we still have to identify that, but thanks for that feedback to make sure that we're deliberate in how we communicate that when they come out. Yeah. Okay, thanks for that feedback. I think we only have...
We probably have a few more seconds, but I will say too, and I don't know if we're going to go in this direction, but having recently been to Cedar Point, and then knowing that there's that fast pass, I don't know if we can build, for those who have already been seed sprinters, I don't know if there's a fast pass, but to get ahead of the line on the roller coaster. Listen, guys, thank you. On that same point, if you don't mind, in closing, there was something else too that I think came out of last semester that's really important, and that was the outpouring of individuals who wanted to be thinkers. Again, that is another kind of ethnographic resource, if you will, for us, because it tells us who and how people want to be leaders in this institution. And another repository that I have on my mind to be thinking about for future opportunities, whatever they may be. So just please don't think that any of that stuff that happened last semester is dissipated by any means. It lives with me and with Lisa, because it's a rich library of us and our ability to move ahead. So listen, guys, thank you. We're going to repeat this, as Lisa said, for those who have not come today. Thank you for coming today. Again, you get your pass, but please encourage others to come next time. And see you around campus, guys. Thanks.